Hi, this is a short video in response to Father Brendan Kilcoyne's video on Catholic school system. This is on the channel The Immaculata Productions, and the Brendan option is it's his episode number 42. And a big thank you for starting these videos, which I think are excellent, educating us a lot. And you've asked during the video for feedback, so I'm giving some constructive feedback on this particular topic. Not on anything you've said in the video, which I think, I agree with everything, but just on the topic of the Catholic school education system. If we look in Ireland today, most places are familiar with the Irish Catholic Directory, and gives you all of the contacts, the statistics and everything about the Catholic Church in Ireland. And we go to page 318 of this directory, and it talks about the number of schools we have in Ireland and the number of students we have. So in Ireland we have 3,969 primary and secondary Catholic schools in Ireland, and a total of 929,400 students in Catholic schools. So we've a very large network according to this. This is a publication that's issued every year. It's coordinated by the Irish Episcopal Conference. So it gives you all the stats and everything on the Catholic Church. But according to this, we have over 900,000 students. Now, I went through this system back in the 1980s, and we didn't learn much about the Catholic faith in Catholic schools. So much so that most of my generation no longer practice their faith. And I don't think it's got much better since the 1980s. I have children in these schools, and obviously they tell me what's going on, and really we're forming a generation of people that don't know the faith, because we actually don't teach the faith. We don't teach the basics of the Catholic faith. We have the Catechism of the Catholic Church. This is the latest edition. And if I was to say, do we teach this in our Catholic schools in Ireland? Do we teach basics of Catholic faith? We don't. It's evident to see. And so the question would be, either we are Catholic, we teach the Catholic faith, which today is uncomfortable in today's world. Catholic values, what we believe in as Catholics, what the Catholic Church teaches today, doesn't sit well with modern liberal values in Ireland. And if we were to teach this and actually say, okay, we are forming, in this school, we are forming the students to be Catholics, to know better their faith so that they live and practice their faith. If we were to do that in Catholic schools, I can guarantee you the Irish bishops and Irish priests and those working in schools would not be, it would not happen. It's just simply, we just don't teach it anymore. They're basic items of Catholic faith, for example, living a life of sanctifying grace, understanding, basic spiritual tenets of our faith are not taught in Irish schools, are not practiced in Irish schools. Do we have, for example, weekly access to the sacraments in Irish schools? No, you don't. Doesn't practically 99% of those 3,900 schools, there is not weekly access to confession or mass. There's not daily prayer, and the basic 101 tenets of Catholic faith are not practiced or lived in Irish schools. They weren't in my time, and nothing much has changed since then. And I went to a Convent of Mercy Catholic school. We used to have a chapel in that school. It doesn't exist anymore. That's simply it. If there are chapels left in schools, they're used for other items. The Holy Sacrament, the Eucharist, is not reserved in many schools anymore. There are no Catholic altars. There's no daily call to prayer. And there's no etc., 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 etc. So, it's pointless saying it's a Catholic school when really and truly it just panders to the secular ethos. We have given in, we have handed over uh, Catholic teaching to the mores of the day, the secular culture of Ireland today. God forbid we would talk about what the Catholic Church actually, what today in the Catholic Catechism actually teaches. So Father Brendan, change comes from the top. Priests and bishops are on the boards of many of these Catholic schools. And either you do what you were ordained to do, which was to open the doors of sanctifying grace to the faithful. And that is done by the sacraments. Either we start going back and, offering, teaching and living the basics of the Catholic faith, or we stop calling these schools Catholic. And the simple reality is they don't teach the faith, they don't practice the faith, they don't offer the faith. It's just a name. You look at the mill of sacraments being offered, communions and confirmations that are being offered. You see it, priests see it around Ireland. You offer the first communion to a class, and are those students there next week at Mass? No, they're not. So they, either the families or the students didn't understand what they're receiving the first week. Because if they did, they would come back. This is the simple truth of it. We make the communion out to be a big day and the confirmation out to be a big day, but we don't connect those events with the faith. Because where are they? Where are these students? Where are these families weeks later? And that's simply the reality of it. We saw through this whole pandemic, the people that are least impacted by the virus, the young families, they weren't the ones filling the churches. It was mostly the elderly when we could go back to Mass, when the chapels and churches were open. So if we want to talk about the Catholic school system, first of all, you need to teach the Catholic faith, which is not popular in Ireland, and which will mean that you have to give up Catholic schools, because most parents and most students don't want to hear about what the Catholic Church actually teaches. There's a lot of stuff in here that runs counter to the secular values that we have in Ireland today. For example, being pro-life is not popular, and most Catholic students are not pro-life. They won't stand for life. Most university students most of these students that go on to university, they don't bring with them the Catholic values, that basic respect for human life. It doesn't carry forward. And if I suppose the great irony, if you want to form atheists, send them to a Catholic school in Ireland, because that's in effect what we've done. And we are becoming rapidly the most secular country in Europe, and we think that's great. Okay, but what do we think 13,000 abortions over 2 years is something to be proud of, to be celebrated? We saw the celebrations when abortion was passed. We celebrate this. Do we think that's something that's right, that's moral, that's something that we should be proud of? No, I don't think so. And I'm in a minority in saying this. I think it's a massive failure in our society that we can't value the unborn child. But these values, these Catholic values, Christian values, natural values, because it's something that that we should, respect for human life should be something that we all should value. These values don't stand anymore in Irish society, are not taught in Catholic schools. They simply are not taught there. We just it's obvious. So Father Brendan, you're a priest. You need to. Change comes from the top, and it's going to be difficult. Either bishops and priests stand their ground and teach the Catholic faith, offer the Catholic faith, offer sacraments, open souls to sanctifying grace. The basics of our Catholic faith. Most Catholics in Ireland do not believe in the Eucharist anymore, for example. Basic tenets of the Catholic faith. Most Catholics do not believe in them anymore. We've educated a whole generation to not view the church as something that they need to. That's not part of their lives. That's what we've done in Catholic schools. And people can criticize me for saying this. And there might be some Catholic schools out there, but I haven't seen them especially where I live. They simply don't exist. And it's we're not educating our kids to actually understand, love, and live the faith. And it's an eye opener for me. As a layman in Ireland, you go to other communities, Catholic communities. For example, you go to a traditionalist Catholic community in Ireland, which forms their children are formed in the church, in the community. For example, the Society of St. Pius X, which just had their confirmations a week ago. How they form kids to understand the faith, how they form kids to know the faith. It is radically different than how we do it in Catholic schools. And we look at them as as a minority of somebody that, are different, set aside and so forth. And yet they take the challenge very seriously, and the families take the challenge very seriously to form their kids in the faith. So, the questions need to be asked. What happened in Ireland? We stopped teaching and preaching the faith. As simple as that's what has happened in Irish society, in the Irish church, the Catholic Church. We stopped teaching, forming, living, and standing for the faith. That is simply what's happened. We know this. You know this. And we have our priorities completely wrong. For example, bishops and priests will send programs into schools to talk about Laudato Si. Okay, but when Irish Catholics don't even know what the Eucharist is, you have your priorities completely skewed and wrong. You get the Eucharist is the source, summit, and center of our Catholic faith, according to Vatican II. Pope John Paul II wrote his last encyclical, the Ecclesia Eucharistia, on the Eucharist. As the program for this millennium. The Eucharist is the center of everything, and yet we don't believe in the basics. Catholics do not believe in the basics, and we are focused on God knows what. And yet, when you don't believe in the Eucharist, when you don't experience the Eucharist, when you don't educate our kids in the Eucharist, regarding the Eucharist, regarding the true presence, nothing you will do in the church has any value. You've become a social network. You've become, a just secular society, that preaches, we have to be nice and so forth. And that, where does that stand? What does that speak to anybody? You're not offering Christ. You're offering just you're just like akin to a charitable organization that just panders to whatever cause is out in society. So we've seen this. We've seen the destruction of the Catholic faith in Ireland. The 13,000 abortions we've had over the last 2 years. That's 13,000 women that have decided that the child they were carrying in the womb had no value and didn't mean anything to them, and they discarded them as medical waste. And those women and men, we have to think about the men that were involved in this process as well. If it was 13,000 women having abortions, there was 13,000 fathers involved in that process as well. Those thousands of Irish citizens, most of them were educated in Irish schools, Irish Catholic schools, and their values they got from Irish Catholic schools. With the lack of values they got from Irish Catholic schools. We don't talk about this thing. We don't talk about the meaning of life. We don't talk about taking responsibility for our actions anymore. It's all about individualism and subjective view of what's good and right and wrong. We don't teach the objective values anymore, and we don't stand over them. So, Father, I think the videos are great, but the only way to change this is from the top down, or from bishops and priests down. That if you don't live the faith, there is very little hope that the laity can change Ireland. If you don't live and offer the sacraments in schools weekly, where are we going? There is one priority for the Catholic Church in Ireland. There is only one priority at the moment for the Catholic Church in Ireland, and that is Catholic education. If you put all of your resources and all of your efforts into that one area, maybe we will see some fruits to that. And and when I talk about education, going back to the basics, we need to teach the basics of the Catholic faith to our children and involve students and parents in that. And if families and students do not want to be involved in that process, perfect, let them go. And let's concentrate on those that do want to be involved and do want a Catholic education, which may mean, letting go of half of our schools. That could be but at least we remain with authentic Catholic education and not what we have today, which doesn't form Catholics. It's not forming anybody. It is a very bland, nondescript education that doesn't, teach the values of the Catholic Church. So, think about it. Let me know what you think. You asked for a response, so I'm giving you the response. They're giving you the feedback on the video. But the problem is, the problem with the Catholic school system in Ireland is we don't teach the Catholic faith. And that's simply it. There is no other way of saying it. And we know this. We've seen the fruits of the Irish Catholic education system over the last number of years. And I would go so far as to say, even in our seminary training in Maynooth, and I know lots of ex-seminarians from Maynooth, it goes there as well. You don't teach men to be priests anymore. There is no good training left in Ireland for Catholic priests. I mean, the amount of bishops now that are refusing to send men to Maynooth goes to show that Maynooth has seen its day as far as training goes. That's simply it. And what is coming out of Maynooth over the last number of years, sadly, is we've seen the fruits of them. I think last year, sadly, more priests left the priesthood than were ordained to the priesthood in Ireland, which is a very sad reality for the Irish Church. Not that many priests were ordained last year. More priests left the priesthood or were suspended from the priesthood in Ireland than were ordained to the priesthood. This is a very sad indictment. We don't give the fundaments of our faith. We don't form men to have the foundations in their faith and good spiritual life, which is a battle. Then how can we expect? What can we expect in the Irish Church? We have a poor leadership, a weak leadership, and we have an education system that doesn't. That's floundering. It's Catholic in name but not in practice. And that's simply the reality of it. So anyway, just my feedback. Keep going with the videos. I think they're great, but if we want change in Ireland, it needs to come from the top. It needs to come from the hierarchy. Us laity, we can do our bit, but without the support and the direction from the hierarchy, it's very difficult or near on impossible to do anything in Ireland. You ask for adoration, you ask for the sacraments, you're asking for this and that, and there isn't the support for that. There isn't the willingness to support that. So God bless, Father. Take care. Bye bye.